zaczynać stream, proszę.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to our A+ Lectures program. We are here for you from Pomeranian University in Słupsk, Poland, and we are really happy to see you here, and we are also very happy that you have joined us tonight or today. This special event today on the 26th of January is a special event because this is the final event in the second edition of our A+ Lectures. Let me remind you that the A+ Lectures program is our outreach mission. So this program basically succeeds in getting the scientific knowledge, the knowledge of experts, out to the society, to all the students, all the people interested, and this is how Pomeranian University in Słupsk realizes its third mission. So tonight, this is the final event, and this event tonight is on the invitation of the Institute of Security and Administration. So we have a renowned expert today with us, Professor Mirosław Skibiniewski of the University of Maryland, USA. I also would like to greet the moderator tonight, the director of the Institute of Security and Management, Professor Janusz Gierszewski. And I just would like to share a piece of technical information with all of you. I would like you to pay attention to this little fact that you can ask your questions through the chat box, which you can see on your right. So when you have joined as listeners, you can see the chat box to the right, and probably you have already seen some people writing on chat. So throughout the lecture, we would like to invite you to ask your questions there, and towards the end of the event, we will read out those questions. And this is important because then the people who are with us on YouTube cannot really see the chat. So we will be reading out the chat, the questions from the chat, and we will then ask Professor Skibiniewski to answer or address all of those issues and questions that appear out there in chat. Or you can also, by the way, send any of your questions or comments through YouTube chat as well. So welcome again tonight, or as I say today, well, I say tonight because even if it's 5 p.m. here in Poland, it's already dark outside. And good morning wherever you are in the world, obviously. And I think it's good afternoon for Professor Skibiniewski, is it? Is it already?
Actually, still good morning because it's 11 o'clock a.m.
Oh, it's 11. It's 11. Okay. So thank you very much indeed. Okay. I will now give the floor to Professor Gierszewski. Thank you for organizing this event. And welcome to Pomeranian University in Słupsk now. Professor Skibiniewski, thank you for accepting this invitation. But now I will give the floor to Professor Gierszewski, who will then introduce you and the event tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I will be speaking in Polish. My information, the lecture will be Polish for everyone. Tak myślałem, że będę właśnie przedstawiał pana profesora w języku polskim, ponieważ Instytut Bezpieczeństwa i Zarządzania, który zaprosił pana profesora, to właśnie studenci głównie polskojęzyczni i myślę, że ten wykład będzie pełniejszy, gdy tak się to odbędzie. Składam szczególne podziękowanie dla profesora Marka Łukasika, całego zespołu, szczególnie dla pani kierownik Eweliny Winiewicz, która pomogła nam zorganizować spotkanie, jak i też dla pani doktor Izy Szkurłat, która jest zastępcą do spraw nauki w naszym instytucie. Tak przyznam się szczerze, mam pewien kłopot, ponieważ uzgodniliśmy, że profesor Mirosław Skibiniewski będzie miał wykład na 30-40 minut. I przygotowując się do dzisiejszej prezentacji jego postaci, no to chyba bym zajął więcej niż 30 minut, prezentując jego dorobek, więc postaram się to zrobić w maksymalnym skrócie, zostawiając ten czas również dla Państwa. A wszystkich Państwa bardzo witam serdecznie i cieszę się, że będziecie uczestniczyli, wydaje mi się, w pewnej odsłonie bezpieczeństwa troszeczkę innego. Przyzwyczailiśmy się, że bezpieczeństwo to nauki społeczne, chociaż w Instytucie mamy przecież i inżynierię bezpieczeństwa, cyberbezpieczeństwa. Nie każdy o tym wie, że kształcimy inżynierów cyberbezpieczeństwa. A teraz główny nasz bohater, pan profesor Mirosław Skibiniewski. Jest to absolwent Wydziału Inżynierii Lądowej Politechniki Warszawskiej, magister inżynier o specjalności technologia i organizacja budownictwa. Po zakończeniu studiów podjął pracę na stanowisku inżyniera zespołu badawczego w najstarszej firmie konsultacyjnej w Stanach Zjednoczonych. Tam zajmował się zagadnieniami bezpieczeństwa konstrukcji budowlanych, inżynierskich oraz badaniami wypadków budowlanych. Zleceniodawcami byli głównie wyspecjalizowane amerykańskie agencje rządowe, koncerny, zakłady przemysłowe, ale również kancelarie prawnicze, które zatrudniają biegłych sądowych w sprawach, które noszą za sobą wielomilionowe niekiedy odszkodowania za właśnie wypadki zawalenia konstrukcji stalowych. Pan profesor Mirosław Skibiniewski jest absolwentem prestiżowego Uniwersytetu Carnegie Mellon w USA, gdzie zdobył stopnie Master of Science oraz Doctor of Philosophy. W pracy naukowej początkowo kontynuował tematykę bezpieczeństwa konstrukcji i prac budowlanych, a następnie w ramach pracy doktorskiej zajął się jako jeden z pierwszych, a podkreślenia na świecie, zagadnień wykorzystania robotyki i automatyki do realizacji robót budowlanych. Praca ta zaowocowała monografią pod tytułem Robotics in Civil Engineering, która została wydana w Nostrand Reinhold i Computer Science Publication. Pan profesor Mirosław Skibiniewski posiada wieloletnie doświadczenie w pracy na stanowiskach adiunkta, docenta, profesora w dwóch prestiżowych uniwersytetach amerykańskich, Purdue University oraz University of Maryland. Piastował funkcję prorektora do spraw współpracy z zagranicą oraz rektora, założyciela Politechniki wchodzącej w skład Uniwersytetu Khalifa w Abu Zabi. Pracował także jako profesor wizytujący oraz profesor honorowy 3 uniwersytetów chińskich w Pekinie i również i w Wuhan oraz 2 singapurskich uniwersytetach. Był wieloletnim profesorem wizytującym właśnie wielu uniwersytetów oraz kilku uczelni technicznych w Wielkiej Brytanii. Profesor Skibiniewski jest obecnie współpracownikiem Instytutu Informatyki Teoretycznej i Stosowanej PAN w Gliwicach, a także byłym współpracownikiem Instytutu Mechanizacji Budownictwa i Górnictwa Skalnego w Warszawie, Wydziału Zarządzania Politechniki Białostockiej oraz Uniwersytetu Techniczno-Przyrodniczego w Bydgoszczy. Jest członkiem Narodowej Akademii Budownictwa Stanów Zjednoczonych, Akademii Inżynierskiej w Polsce, a także członkiem zagranicznych Rosyjskiej Akademii Inżynieryjnych. Pracował także funkcję Visiting Fellow Brytyjskiej Królowej Akademii Inżynierskiej. Wypromował 35 doktorów nauk technicznych w Stanach Zjednoczonych, otrzymał wiele odznaczeń, nagród za swoje prace naukowe, m.in. nagrodę Presidential Young Investigator, ufundowaną przez amerykańską Narodową Fundację Naukową i prezydenta Ronalda Reagana. Także tych nagród jeszcze można by wiele wymienił. Był stypendystą wielu fundacji, między fundacji Fulbrighta w Argentynie i Chile, Humboldta w Niemczech. Jest jednym z najbardziej cytowanych autorów o specjalności technologia i organizacja budownictwa na świecie. Otrzymał też tytuł doktora honoris causa polityki wileńskiej oraz katedrę personalną wraz z profesurą honorową Chaoyang Uniwersytetu Technologicznego, największej niepublicznej uczelni technicznej na Tajwanie. Od 28 lat pełni funkcję redaktora naczelnego pisma naukowego Automatyka i konstrukcja wydawanego przez koncern Elsevier, a to znane nam, jeżeli chodzi o naszą ewaluację również, które wprowadza do Scopusa publikację. Posiada to pismo współczynnik oddziaływania o wysokości 7,7, a co daje jako drugi najwyższy współczynnik w kategorii właśnie cywilnej inżynierii lądowej i transportu spośród 170 czasopism z tej kategorii. Obecnie profesor Mirosław Skibiniewski jest profesorem Katedry Zarządzania Projektami, kierownikiem grupy badawczej Construction Group właśnie w Uniwersytecie Maryland. To jest uczelnia taka flagowa właśnie na przedmieściach Waszyngtonu. Także panie profesorze, publika jest dla pana.
Bardzo dziękuję, panie dyrektorze. Tylko takie pytanie techniczne, ponieważ obiecałem pani Ewelinie, prosiła, żebym mówił po angielsku, ale pan dyrektor woli, żeby po polsku, czy jak to zrobimy?
No ja jestem tylko jednym z prezenterów tego spotkania, tak do końca nie uzgodniliśmy tego, więc wydaje mi się, że tutaj w tej chwili głos gospodarzy, czyli pana profesora Łukasika i pan kierownik chyba jest taki decydujący.
Czyli po polsku czy po angielsku? Jak...
Już, szanowni państwo, jeżeli mogę, tak?
Tak. Aha. Halo, nie słyszę?
Bardzo przepraszam, jeszcze raz. Szanowni Państwo, zgodnie z założeniem projektu bardzo bym prosił o możliwość wygłoszenia wykładów w języku angielskim, ponieważ później do tych wykładów będą dołączane napisy w języku polskim, także jakby dostępność będzie szeroka. Natomiast na tym etapie prosilibyśmy, ponieważ zapraszaliśmy również naszych gości z zagranicy, o wygłoszenie wykładu w języku angielskim. Bardzo serdecznie dziękuję. I just said that this event will be in English if Professor Skibiniewski doesn't mind, because we have also guests from abroad, and later on the lecture will be available with subtitles in Polish, so it will be available to the wider public. So if you don't mind, Professor Skibiniewski, we will continue in English from now on. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Professor Łukasik and Professor Gierszewski. It's a great pleasure to be able to present to such a wide audience. I have not had a privilege and opportunity to present for the Pomeranian Academy yet, so this is my first time. The topic of the presentation today is Industry 5.0. It's a new paradigm that has been coined only recently on the foundation of Industry 4.0, and with concerns that need to address new paradigms related to resilience as well as environmental protection, as well as issues that relate to a great deal of destruction that has been happening in the infrastructure all over the world, including Poland. So my presentation will give you some ideas as to what extent the expertise of people at the Pomeranian University will be able to plug into this new paradigm and work on research projects that are important for the country as well as for the rest of the world. Since Professor Gierszewski has already introduced me, I'm not going to belabor my own background. I would like to move right into the essence of the presentation today, and the essence has to do with my focus on the construction industry, since the infrastructure related activities in any economy are the primary contributor to the gross domestic product. The same is true in Poland, especially right now, when there is so much going on in terms of the development of the national infrastructure. It's also true in the United States, where I'm speaking from at this time. We are embarking on an unprecedented program to upgrade the national infrastructure of the United States. So roads, bridges, airports, railway systems, even inland navigation systems on major waterways in the United States, and so on. So before we get started with the concept of the 5.0 paradigm, let me review what is at stake when it comes to the technologies related to Industry 4.0. So please don't be confused with the labels related to construction, because construction is one of the major branches of the industry, and I'd like to illustrate the points that I'm making on the example of the construction industry. So here we are. I have been involved with this old paradigm 4.0 for quite a while. This book that was published last year, Construction 4.0, contains a chapter on automation and robotics that are being applied to the built environment. Also, the concept of digital twins in terms of products as well as constructed facilities has gaining attention throughout the world, and it has to do a great deal with digital technologies that are promulgated across all areas of industry. And there are books that are being published not only in English, but also in other languages that address essential technologies for technological development of the industry and further promulgation of these achievements in order to gain productivity, increase safety levels, as well as address environmental concerns. So when we look at the construction 4.0 concepts, is the application of industry 4.0 to the construction sector in terms of the physical domain and automation, simulations and modeling. Simulation is always a simplification of reality. Therefore, simulation requires very in-depth, detailed studies of how a particular system conforms to the requirements of the production lines in the industry. And so modeling is necessary before simulations can occur. And then digitalization and virtualization is the next step that is also required in order to apply Industry 4.0 concepts in any industry sector, including construction. So we have a little timeline here on this slide showing Industry 1.0 and what it contains. And you can see that Industry 5.0 was the first attempt at mechanization and application of steam power primarily. Industry 2.0 was an attempt to develop technologies that would facilitate mass production. Industry 3.0 was already automation and the application of computers and electronics, and 4.0, this current paradigm addresses cyber physical systems as well as Internet of Things and networked environments. And this is really the reality in which we live today. The 5.0 concept that is the title of my presentation today has not been fully realized yet, since we're educating our students for the future rather than for the present. That's why it's necessary for us to introduce this concept today. So these are some of the examples of the Industry 4.0 technologies. A lot of these headlines are probably very familiar to you, like the 5G communication systems right now being implemented in various countries throughout the world, including Poland, not without hiccups and implementation problems. The most recent concern is the safety and security of the 5G communication networks around airports, and what is the impact that these networks will have on safe landing and takeoff of aircraft. Some of these issues are still being investigated. Some countries have requested their telecommunication organizations to delay the implementation of the 5G networks until all those concerns related to safety and security are fully addressed. Now we have other technologies that are taking over the manufacturing industries, like a storm, additive manufacturing, in other words, also referred to as 3D printing. Not only in factory-based manufacturing, but also in the construction industry. You are literally witnessing buildings being 3D printed in this day and age, not just buildings, but also bridges and other facilities. Anyone interested in that subject, I can share with you a lot more information on that topic. Mobile applications have become already a standard. When I asked my own students if they know of anyone who does not own a mobile phone, they looked surprised, and they are of the belief that such a person probably doesn't exist in day and age. Well, I was quick to point out to them that almost 30% of the world population has no access to electricity. So how can they possibly have access to mobile telephony? On the other hand, I remember traveling in India at one time some years ago, and I found myself in Calcutta in West Bengal in northeast India. And in the famous or infamous slums of Calcutta, I saw people who are destitute, who live literally on the street, and they don't have proper clothes to wear. However, many, if not most of them, were actually clinching to a mobile phone in their hands. So that is already considered an essential need for humans that need to communicate, that need to stay in touch with others. So mobile applications are pervasive throughout the industry and throughout the society, and they're here to stay. Of course, I'm not going to be able to cover all these technologies, but you can look what they entail. Cloud computing, for example, we couldn't possibly have distributed databases that the world has come to rely on without cloud computing available. Common data environments, various data platforms that allow for databases to seamlessly exchange data across the board. Cyber physical systems, very important for the safe operation of various facilities, such as bridges, airports, power plants, and so on. And these cyber physical systems we come to rely on in terms of intelligent power distribution, in terms of troubleshooting various systems on which the economy relies heavily these days, and so on. Geographic information systems used practically everywhere where information in terms of outside environment has to be transmitted in real time to various decision makers and to end users. Sensor-based systems, social media, supply chain management, of course, hugely important across the board in many different scenarios. So these are the technologies that Industry 4.0 relies on. So when you look at examples of the applications, I mentioned 3D printing, and these are some of the examples of structures that have been already erected with the use of 3D printing technologies. We have adaptive robotics that are being applied across industries, robotics that can sense their own environment and make essential decisions as to how to proceed based on whatever objects they find in the environment, whatever obstacles they need to negotiate, and whatever issues they need to react to. Robots are applied in the security industry to guard perimeters of secure areas. They are also widely used in bomb disposal or in handling of hazardous tasks in dangerous environments, both in civilian and military applications. You can see that also not just on the ground, but also aerial vehicles. Autonomous aerial vehicles are ubiquitous in various applications, autonomous or semi-autonomous. Again, for security reasons, as well as monitoring of the environment for industrial safety applications. And these industries are growing very rapidly, and they're very likely to adopt it even into areas of applications where they haven't been implemented before. So another interesting application that needs to be mentioned are blockchain technologies that are also taking over certain branches of industry by storm. Almost everyone has already heard or even directly dealt with digital currencies, so cryptocurrencies. They are becoming quickly an alternative to established financial systems. Question is, how safe these applications can possibly be, and to what extent the documentation that lends itself to these technologies can in fact be more secure and temper resistant than traditional documentation that the world has come to rely on for decades now, if not longer. So blockchain technologies are very interesting because they're quickly moving to legal applications as well. You may or may have not heard yet of so-called smart contracts. And these are contract documents that can be automatically executed once a certain condition that is stipulated in the contract document is already met. So there is no need to wait for verification, no need to actually trigger other sets of events that would lead to, for example, the issuance of payment to the contractor that has fulfilled its obligations under the stipulations of the contract. So this is already a reality. It's more of a legal question or political question as to whether these contract documents can be successfully applied. The technology is already in place and available for use. So here we are. Another technology is augmented reality, and this is the combination of virtual and physical reality. It's used for all sorts of verification purposes, for learning purposes, and it's being applied in a variety of industries, including construction, including mining, including exploration of space, where you can actually combine images coming from computer models with images coming directly from the physical space. And to what extent these augmented reality models are applicable depends on the branch of the industry. They're used for security training. They're used for all sorts of educational and training purposes, especially for safety training related to machinery and equipment in industrial plants as well as construction sites and many other applications. They're also used by police forces around the world to train police personnel in crime fighting for a variety of purposes. They are cheaper to implement than physical models, than physical training. And a lot of these augmented reality-based simulators are also used for pilot training these days. And that technology obviously is here to stay with us. And another example is artificial intelligence, a hugely important area. I don't have time to belabor that. It's already taking over certain applications in banking and diagnostics, including medical diagnosis. It has already been documented that some of the AI-based diagnostics programs can actually provide a better diagnosis than the human doctor. And to what extent that is likely to permeate our medical services in Poland or in the United States or elsewhere in the world still remains to be seen. Nevertheless, the evidence is already in place that these systems are highly capable of performing their tasks. So very quickly, moving on to understanding the concept of Industry 5.0. Why is it important? Well, actually, Industry 5.0 is, as I mentioned earlier, is a relatively new concept that goes beyond producing goods and services for profit. The idea is to shift the focus from the shareholder value in business organizations to stakeholder value. Stakeholder, as opposed to a shareholder, doesn't necessarily hold a financial stake in an organization, but is in one way or another affected by the activities of that organization. So the motivation behind the introduction of Industry 5.0 is reinforcement of the role and the contribution of industry to society, and the placement of well-being of the worker at the center of the production process. So rather than only productivity and quality of outcome, it's also the well-being of the human. So the way to implement it is through the use of new technologies to provide prosperity beyond jobs and growth while respecting the production limits of our planet. So here we come to the concept of sustainability. In order for us to be good stewards of the resources that we're endowed with here on Earth, we need to make sure that we harness the capabilities of these technologies represented by Industry 4.0 for the purpose of achieving those goals that are related to sustainability, to safety, the well-being of humans, as well as making the contribution to the well-being of the society at large. So Industry 5.0 is nothing else but the complementation of the existing Industry 4.0 approach. So if we want to define Industry 5.0, we have to focus on the fact that it is human-centric. It's focused on sustainability and focused on resilience. Sustainability doesn't necessarily imply exclusively environmental sustainability. We're also talking about economic sustainability and sustainability with respect to the cultural constraints and the cultural motivations of certain segments of the society. So the Industry 5.0, as it says, it recognizes the power of industry to achieve societal goals beyond jobs and growth, to become a resilient provider of prosperity by making production respect the boundaries of our planet and placing the well-being of the worker at the center of the production process. So the well-being of the worker is really at the center, and of course sustainability and resilience are in service of that well-being. And this is really the thrust of this entire effort. So Industry 5.0 is an innovative, resilient, and socio-centered and competitive industry, which respects planetary boundaries and minimizes its negative environmental impact. So in other words, all those endowments that were provided to us by God, we need to be better stewards of it. So enabling technologies are human-centric solutions and human-machine interaction. We're also looking at bio-inspired technologies and smart materials. The millennia of evolutions of biological systems have provided us with some guidance as to what is really biologically sustainable and what we can learn from these biological organisms in order to implement those solutions in the new systems that we're going to develop as part of Industry 5.0, rather than reinventing the wheel and coming up with something less efficient and less perfect than these bio-inspired systems. We're also interested in the implementation of real-time based digital twins and simulation, and cyber-safe data transmission, storage, and analysis technologies are hugely important in this day and age, when we see so much evidence that systems that are supposed to serve society, they're being attacked by malicious actors on the outside. So increasing security and safety of these systems is of paramount importance, and it's also going to be the focus of the Industry 5.0. Artificial intelligence, of course, is going to be harnessed to serve those purposes, but we also have to look at how we can harness the capabilities of artificial intelligence to achieve better energy efficiency and trustworthy autonomy of these systems. So in other words, systems that are going to be allowed to run semi or fully autonomously are going to bear that requirement of trustworthiness. How do we achieve that? Well, this is going to be a great deal of discussion and a great deal of research and development as to what constitutes a trustworthy system and how to best achieve it. So the concept of Industry 5.0 has also been described as reintroducing the lost dimension of the human or value-centered Industry 4.0. So the challenges that we need to address are the social dimension, government and political dimension, interdisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity. These are, by the way, two distinct concepts. So please look up the difference between these two. We also need to address the economic dimension, because we need to make sure that the society as a whole can benefit from the applications of this new paradigm, not only certain segments of the society. And we have to make sure that the solutions that we come up with are scalable. So solutions that work at the smaller scale, that they're scalable to a larger scale, and sometimes vice versa, that a widely conceived solution at the large scale is also going to work well at the local or even the municipal scale. So that would need to be addressed as part of the research and development as well. All right, so in the construction industry specifically, human-centric construction is the reason, is the objective actually. It has to be built on super connectivity, so all participants of the production processes have to be fully connected to one another. Of course, some of this connectivity has to be managed in order to preserve confidential data and information that needs to be provided on a need basis. But the overall aim is at sustainability, particularly environmental sustainability. So any human activity that produces goods and services is bound to have an adverse effect on the environment. So aim at sustainability is supposed to answer the question as to how well can we replicate, or how well can we compensate the environment for the damage that has been done by the human activity. And we're in a closed ecosystem, and this ecosystem has to be intelligently managed in order to avoid further destruction of the environment as we know it today. This is for our own survival. This is necessary for our economies as well as for the quality of life. So the direction of research when it comes to either construction or industry 5.0 is human-centric accessibility. So all the data systems, information systems, as well as production systems have to be fully accessible by those who have legitimate interest in it. We have to come up with bio-inspired technologies that take advantage of solutions available in nature. We need to find better ways for waste recycling. Recycling of waste is a hugely important issue. It greatly affects our environment. This is a topic by itself. There are semester-long courses taught on environmental management, and in fact, there are academic specialties that are related to that very topic. Connected infrastructure systems are also important, ensuring that various subsystems in the infrastructure converse with one another and transfer data seamlessly without the unnecessary intervention from humans. We also need to develop product information models and building information models coupled with geographic information systems. And also we need to harness big data technologies for sustainable construction and manufacturing. So all of those topics are valid directions for research. So those of you who are interested in advanced degrees and would like to come up with innovative solutions as part of the Industry 5.0 paradigm, this is a good opportunity. So I've exhausted my time limit, so thank you for your attention. I'll be happy to take any questions that may arise.
Thank you for the interesting lecture on time discipline. Please ask question in English or Polish. Dziękuję panie profesorze. Zapraszam wszystkich do zadawania pytań w języku polskim lub też angielskim.
Szanowni Państwo, też postanowiłem się włączyć na chwileczkę. Bardzo dziękujemy za ten wykład. Thank you very much for this lovely lecture and really informative. And as I said in the very beginning, you're all invited to ask your questions using the chat box, and you can ask them in Polish or English, as Professor has just said. I can see somebody is writing a message at the moment, so do not forget to ask questions now. Panie profesorze, bardzo przepraszam, że tak na chwileczkę się tutaj jeszcze włączyłem. Chciałem wyjaśnić też w języku angielskim, gdybyśmy mieli jednak gości z zagranicy, gdzie te pytania zadawać.
Oczywiście.
Także bardzo serdecznie dziękujemy. Panie dyrektorze, czy pan dyrektor może włączy również kamerę i już mikrofon? Będziemy tak tutaj już może moderować. Ja w razie czego przy tych angielskich pytaniach też tutaj ewentualnie zostawię.
Tak, ja również nie wiedziałem, że mam mikrofon włączony. Też podziękowałem właśnie za wykład. Też zasugerowałem właśnie wystąpienia czy pytania w języku polskim i angielskim. Podziękowałem też właśnie za time discipline. Pan profesor Mirosław Skibiniewski doskonale zmieścił się w czasie, jest 17:40, to też właśnie zasugerowałem. Tak myślę sobie, że jednak są dwa różne języki. I think the language of technical science and social science are two different languages. Tak, jeżeli można powiedzieć, bo mamy studentów i naszych wykładowców właśnie nauka społeczna, był taki wykład techniczny, więc to tak może z tego wynika właśnie z pytań. Albo może...
Starałem się, żeby był mało techniczny, także wyrzuciłem wszystkie równania, modele symulacyjne, żeby się zmieścić w czasie i jednocześnie, żeby zainteresować szerszą społeczność, także humanistów i przedstawicieli nauk społecznych.
Panie profesorze, czy ja mogę mieć jedno pytanie?
Oczywiście.
Jeżeli pan profesor pozwoli. Zadam to pytanie po polsku i może przetłumaczę też po angielsku. Interesuje mnie taka kwestia, czy w przyszłości, ja jestem humanistą, zupełnie lingwistą, panie profesorze, więc nie znam się na tych sprawach, więc dla mnie to są naprawdę takie nowe rzeczy, bardzo ciekawe, ale zapytam, bo oczywiście doczytuję i próbuję zrozumieć te systemy, czy blockchain ma szansę zastąpić tak naprawdę w przyszłości tradycyjne jakby procesy takie finansowe na świecie, to znaczy te kwestie, które dzieją się oczywiście w kwestiach zarówno kryptowalut, jak również i lokowania, zakupu akcji i tak dalej, i tak dalej. So maybe now in English, now my question is, I mean, will blockchain one day probably substitute regular currency like as we know it? Will the digital blockchain-based share exchange and share markets exist using blockchain, including cryptocurrencies?
Yes, thank you. This is really an excellent question. In fact, blockchain technology is already affecting the way that business is being done in a variety of industries, including the financial industry. When it comes to handling currencies, there is this creative tension between traditional currency markets and cryptocurrencies. And the reason for this tension is primarily political. The governments and central banks that control traditional currencies have not developed sets of policies and guidelines on how to interact with cryptocurrencies and how to incorporate them into existing financial markets. So these markets exist at this time in parallel to traditional financial markets, but eventually it's only a question of time that they will have to be integrated. But in order for that to happen, there needs to be a comprehensive action by international as well as national financial organizations that will develop guidelines and policies on issues such as who can exert maybe not the control, but the supervisory powers on how these cryptocurrency markets operate. How the legal profession has to issue some guidance on how smart contracts that are based on really the innovative concepts related to blockchains, how these contracts are going to interface with traditional documents, and again, assign the lines of responsibilities, as well as guidelines on how to handle liability issues and disputes related to contracts that have been promulgated in that fashion. Right now, there is no body of knowledge, no body of established laws, not even case law in situations that may arise in the future when very large sums of money are changing owners literally in real time, and there is little recourse as to how to prevent fraud. Although these systems are designed to be fraud proof, nevertheless, clever malicious players will find ways to actually exploit these systems and deprive rightful owners of certain assets, deprive them of their value, deprive them of their entitlements, deprive them of their ownership of some of these assets. This has already happened. In fact, the police authorities around the world are having an extremely difficult time tracing the perpetrators, tracing the wrongdoers. So it's only a question of time. It's bound to happen simply because the history teaches us that new technologies, when they were developed, they found a way to widespread use. I remember, if history can be a teacher, I remember the example of mobile telephony. United States was maybe the last developed country to embrace the concept of mobile phones. Why would that be? Well, the prevailing thought in the United States was that mobile phones are completely unnecessary because the traditional telephony systems were so well developed in the United States. You could have access to a traditional telephone practically anywhere you go, including highways. Every 5,000 feet, you would have a telephone booth. If your car breaks down, you could stop there and talk to an emergency technician that would connect you with the right experts. They would come and show up. Now, of course, that line of thinking would be considered completely naive. But the countries that were not well developed in terms of traditional telephony, such as India, such as China, embraced that concept very quickly. And right now, as I said during the lecture, it's very hard to find a person in the developed world that does not own a mobile phone. So the same deal is likely to happen with cryptocurrencies and with blockchain technology in general. It will permeate existing systems. It will find its way to the operation of decision support mechanisms, as well as administrative systems, and it'll function seamlessly behind the scenes without end user being intimately involved in the inner operations of these blockchains.
But obviously, the legal aspect is an important one. So who pays the taxes, for example, because this is just something which, as I understand, is not yet fully regulated.
Mm-hmm. It's not fully regulated. There are some attempts at regulation, but it's only in the initial stages of discussion in various legislative bodies in countries such as the US, UK, Japan, South Korea, and so on. Eventually, international organizations, World Trade Organization will have to get involved. Specialized agencies of the United Nations will have to get involved in order for the banking system to comply with these regulations and safe deployment of these technologies. It's not going to happen until these regulations are put in place. But the technology always precedes regulation. The legal profession is always in a reactive rather than proactive mode when it comes to responding to technological challenges. So it's likely that this will be the case here as well.
Thank you so much.
There's a chat question.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
There's a chat question. Jest pytanie na czacie od...
I can read this question. It says, how much, in your opinion, the ongoing pandemic has influenced the idea of Industry 5.0 and the human-centric approach in the industry and management? Well, this is an excellent question because we're dealing with the pandemic as we speak. And the pandemic itself is not likely to slow down the implementation of these ideas, simply because they are responding to the need to have better sustainability and better resilience of the existing production systems, and they need to be human-centric. So if there are particular solutions that will increase the security and safety of humans in terms of workers as well as external participants, so stakeholders in various industrial activities, so be it. These new applications will allow humans to work in secure environments where they will be sort of isolated from opportunities to become infected. But the Industry 5.0 has not been coined and conceived of in response to dire emergencies such as the pandemic. But it's definitely on everyone's mind as to how can we harness any of these new ideas and paradigms into the service of the society in the age of the pandemic. I think it's a valid and open question that someone with interest in public health and interest in advanced technology applications to public health management can find a fertile ground to flourish. All right, let's see. Let's see if there are any other questions.
There is a thank you note coming, so thank you as well.
Yes,
Professor Gierszewski, do you probably have a question or a comment?
To ja myślę, że jeżeli nie ma pytań i tak zaproponuję w tej chwili, to być może podziękujemy już naszemu gościowi i wszystkim, więc tak myślę. If there are no questions, I would like to thank everyone for your attention and have a good night. Tak życzę wszystkim dobrej, spokojnej nocy. Dziękuję panie profesorze, dziękuję również panu rektorowi za to, że umożliwia nam takie spotkania i wszystkim uczestnikom, którzy poświęcili ten czas wspólnie z nami. Wydaje mi się, że to rzeczywiście, tak jak powiedziała Ewa, bardzo ciekawy, interesujący wykład dzisiejszej nocy nas spotkał. Mamy co przemyśleć dzisiaj.
Ja też bardzo dziękuję i życzę Państwu wszelkich sukcesów na polu i dydaktycznym, i naukowym, i mam nadzieję, że uda nam się podtrzymać naszą współpracę.
Panie profesorze, bardzo serdecznie dziękuję. Ja mam jeszcze jedną taką małą wiadomość dla wszystkich naszych uczestników po polsku i po angielsku. Szanowni Państwo, wykład na 5+ to nasz program, tak jak wspomniałem na samym początku, to nasz program realizowany w ramach dużego projektu Aktywna Akademia. To projekt, który realizujemy w ramach 3. misji naszej uczelni. Szanowni Państwo, ci z Państwa, którzy oglądają nas na kanale YouTube, mogą w bardzo prosty sposób dowiedzieć się więcej na temat naszej działalności. Wystarczy zasubskrybować kanał, macie na dole taką możliwość pod naszym teraz streamingiem. Prosiłbym, czy zachęcam Państwa do zasubskrybowania naszego kanału i przejrzenia naszych materiałów wideo. Szanowni Państwo, również wszystkie inne wykłady na 5+ są dostępne poprzez właśnie platformę YouTube. Możecie Państwo do nich mieć dostęp w każdej chwili, a poza tym zapraszam na stronę internetową uczelni, z której również dowiedzą się Państwo na temat zarówno naszego projektu Aktywna Akademia, jak i wszelkich innych działań naszej uczelni. Przypominam Państwu www.apsl.edu.pl. So let me just thank you for your attention for this meeting. I would like to add that you can always subscribe our channel. This channel belongs to Active University program. This is our 3rd mission program, and this A+ lecture project or program is realized within this big project that we undertake to have the full public outreach of Pomeranian University in Słupsk. Now, by subscribing the channel of Aktywna Akademia or Active University, you will have access to all the video materials that we have uploaded as part of the project itself, but you can also have access to all the previous A+ lectures that are in English, some of them already with subtitles in Polish, and you're all welcome to visit the page, visit the channel, and watch all those previous lectures, but also this current one. I jeszcze tylko dodam, Szanowni Państwo, że kolejna, trzecia edycja naszego programu Wykład na 5+, jest w przygotowaniu. Zapraszamy Państwa na wiosnę. So just one more thing to add, that our program, the program of A+ lectures will be continued, and you're all welcome to visit us again in spring. And don't forget to visit our website, www.apsl.edu.pl. And this is the website from which you can learn about our current activities, including in English, but also about the Active University program, which is our outreach program. And let me thank you again for this lecture. Thank you, Professor Skibiniewski, for accepting this invitation. Thank you, Professor Gierszewski, for moderating this section, for inviting the guest, for organizing this event. Thank you so much. Goodbye and good night.
My pleasure.
Dziękuję
Good
bardzo.
night.
See you soon. See you
Do
soon.
widzenia.
Bye.